Welcome to a new year, 2022, the sequel in the hellscape anthology of the 2020s, and if you happen to stay along on board this far, well, the ride never ends as 2022 is starting off with a bang. Oh no, that's gonna age badly, isn't it? But yeah, you know what's gonna make you all happy? Trains! Infrastructure! Something America is right on track with, right?
I like trains.
Yes, it's been a hiatus since the last video. I have had enough valid reasons. Regardless, the train keeps moving forward whether we want it to or not. So let's begin. The Biden administration passed H.R. 3684, or the INVEST Act, back in November of 2021 to inject about $500,000 into America's infrastructure, with more than $100 billion allocated to rail and transit. That amount, according to the Urban Institute, is about half of what the US spends on just highways and roads in just 1 year. So, yes, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the real cost of fixing our crumbling infrastructure. And I'm sick and tired of hearing that word, crumbling. Since I've been advocating for fixing our crumbling mess for 10 years, nearly 30, much of it has already crumbled at this point. Just look at what happened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which, ironically enough, coincided with President Biden also visiting the area at the same time. As mentioned in the past, the US does not have a problem with funding. The US has access to the most amount of funding than any other entity in history, especially when it can just print it out of thin air, and spends far more than any other country outright and per capita in numerous categories, with horrifyingly inverse results. This follows in our transportation infrastructure, where we vastly overspend per project. To compare rotten apples to rotten apples, take Amsterdam in the Netherlands' own controversial construction of the North-South line. In a city that is on average 6.5 feet below sea level, building an underground subway line in the current century had a cost of about $640 million per mile. That's pretty expensive. But in New Amsterdam, aka New York City, the paltry 2-mile extension of the Q Avenue subway was at record-breaking cost of $2.25 billion per mile, over 3.5 times the cost of one of Europe's most expensive projects. And it looks like that compared to the Dutch counterpart. But hey, the rest of New York hasn't been looking too hot as of late. That figure gets worse when compared to other first world countries like Singapore, Japan, France, and Germany, which have far lower cost per mile rates. That is, if we still consider the US a first world nation. No. Build Back Better is still on the table, but honestly, what can we expect? Especially since the US has been planning high-speed rail since about 1965. Sure, there are more platitudes about how we need to connect the country and our people, and how China has more high-speed rail and we need to catch up, but we've heard this all before. As expected, don't expect much of a solution from the federal government. Let's see what individual states are up to. Oh, California. Seems we are chugging along over there. The plan to connect the Golden State through high-speed rail has been talked about and planned on for decades, with the formation of the California High-Speed Rail Authority in 1996 and breaking ground nearly 20 years later in 2015. Fast forward another 7 years later and, well, we have viaducts in the Central Valley and still not a single train running on the non-existent rail. Honestly, still better than the federal government. The authority has also approved the environmental impact statement for the finalized route between Los Angeles and Burbank, California, one of the more densely populated and crucial legs of the eventual 520 miles of Phase 1, when it is finished in its entirety by 2033, it seems? Funny enough, the first high-speed train to run through California probably won't be by a state-operated authority, but by a private company. Brightline West, an offshoot of the Florida-based privatized passenger rail company, Brightline, has been making way to gain final approval from the Federal Railroad Administration by November for its route between Victorville, California and Las Vegas, Nevada, with a later extension connecting to Los Angeles. If all goes according to plan, the project could be set to begin construction earlier than expected, as soon as 2023, and completed by 2026. Running at speeds exceeding 200 miles an hour, this would officially make it America's first true high-speed rail line when it completes. Brightline had opened its first passenger rail line in early 2018 down in South Florida. Speaking of the Sunshine State, which absolutely seems to not give a flying fuck about the rest of the country since it's carving its own shining railroad to a brighter future, whether it be fueled by basement-grade bath salts, skyrocketing real estate prices, or the stew of smog and bumper-to-bumper traffic of US 1. Smells like opportunity. And taking that opportunity is what Brightline has done. Stations are currently being constructed for a commuter rail service along America's most trafficked and dangerous road of US 1. Something that has been heavily in demand for a long time in Aventura and Boca Raton. Brightline recently started back operations in November of 2021 after its own hiatus from the unknown virus of unspecified origin. And with service restarting, so have South Florida drivers playing chicken with the train. I mean, just look at this one below room temperature IQ individual and what could have been his mini coffin-ess. Well, at least he has the courtesy to go all the way back around?
Bruh.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses?
Brightline has been and continues to spend millions of dollars to educate the public that going near a train is not a good idea. But hey, when you're riding high in Miami, things tend to end up low for you. North of Night City, in South Florida, Brightline has been diligently testing its trains between West Palm Beach and Cocoa. They're over 70% done with the construction from Cocoa to Orlando, with the full completed service from Miami to Orlando expected to open soon next year. Florida's other crazy southern sister. Florida man, meet Texas woman. Oh god, what have I done? Texas Central Railway is a private company in the process of getting approval to build a high-speed rail line between Dallas and Houston that would run at 205 miles an hour, connecting the two megacities in just 90 minutes. Between that, opponents against the project argue against the use of eminent domain in order to acquire land, because trains don't teleport and need space to run on, far less than what a highway requires. The opponents against TCR are mostly led by former oil and gas equipment company and now Texas State Rep Ben Lehman. It just writes itself at this point, doesn't it? The case against the railway is basically this. Texas Central Railway cannot use eminent domain because it is, and I kid you not a railroad company. Yeah. The case was won by the opponents in their home district, that's not a surprise, and appealed successfully by TCR in the Texas Court of Appeals. And the Supreme Court of Texas said they didn't need to hear the case and it was done and over with. And then they reversed course. The state Supreme Court heard responses this month from both sides, and by the recording of this, January 31st, 2022, no decision has yet been made. We initially did a video way back explaining not just what TCR is, but we've done multiple videos on other HSR projects in this country. And I think it may be a time to update all of those and summarize some of the world's other high-speed rail and transit lines as well. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And be sure you are subscribed to the American Rail Club and ring that bell so you're up to date of when the next train arrives at the station. Hopefully things bode well for the railway project that operates on electricity through urban areas. If it's not the oil companies pushing us into war in some far-off distant land, we can always find ways to wreck things here. Amtrak has been busy drumming up plans for how they're going to use their $66 billion allocated by the INVEST Act, including new stations around the country and continued improvements to their existing infrastructure and equipment. $66 billion is certainly a lot more than what they got about 10 years ago from the Obama administration, but with new locomotives, baggage cars, and finally passenger car updates being undertaken after Lord knows how many decades, and brand new Avalia Liberties replacing the aging Acellas, things have been shaping up for America's passenger rail line. As of recent, the vaccine mandate has been rescinded for Amtrak employees. Passengers still need to wear masks on board according to the TSA. Yep, that's the news for Amtrak. Short and sweet. We'll see what this holds for in the future. Oh, back to California. I'm sure by now you've all seen these images and videos in the last several weeks of Union Pacific freight trains being raided for goodies and packages from their cargo cars. Apart from Los Angeles looking closer and closer to its fictional future self in Elysium, the metro area has been experiencing a booming crime in the 2020s, with stores being smashed and grabbed brazenly, murder rate going up, yeah, basically any other large modern American city. Especially, derailed trains like this one have been prime targets for looters, thieves, brigands, scalpers, scabs, whatever dystopian class name you want to give them. Man, we're just playing Fist of the Mad Escape from New Vegas Field 2022 for real edition. But it's not a joke, as the supply chain has already been thoroughly thrown awry from nearly 2 years of lockdowns, the adaptive limitations and failure of the just-in-time delivery mentality in a chaotic landscape, and PlayStation 5 scalping on eBay. America's freight networks account for close to 28% of US freight movement by ton miles, and that is including all the short-haul trips by trucks. And since plenty of trucks have gone up to our buddy A's up north to go honk at the world's most transracial prime minister, things may not be getting better, especially as some more emboldened individuals of a criminal nature are coming up with new tactics. Theft on UP's lines in LA have increased over 356% compared to the year before, with 90 containers on average being broken into every day. Union Pacific has remarked it will increase special agent patrols and consider using special fencing, trespass detection systems, and drones. Oh boy, the future's looking lit! It's obvious that the country and frankly the world is not in its best state, and I've made remark to this before. I know it's probably the gorillionth time you've heard about the country devolving into a state of chaos, while we're kinda just beginning to fix its infrastructure. Which is why I've always advocated for a more localized, state-influenced or run approach rather than a federalized system. Because even going back to 1965, we've had the federal government approve solutions such as high-speed rail multiple times with little to no results. The local state and area in which you live in is going to have more control of where funds go to than whatever DC is up to. And yeah, a lot can happen. Dub Tress breaks out, Florida secedes from the solar system and becomes a spacefaring race fueled by bath salts, California finally sinks into Davy Jones' locker, which, if that's going to be the case, Koofchan 24 breaks out and it's actually happening. Regardless, life still needs to carry on. People have to go places, goods must be transported. Whether that be by Amazon 22-day shipping that is not going to your front door in 23, or the T90s and BTRs being shipped to the Midwest to finally stamp out the double menace of Ohio and Chicago in 27. Rail infrastructure is going to remain relevant regardless, so you might as well get on board. I'll be discussing this more on an upcoming livestream this Sunday, the 6th of February, where I'll go more in depth of some of the topics discussed here and more. That's the end of the line for this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you disliked what I said and want to show it, well, too bad, because not everyone likes all the videos according to YouTube. be sure you've rung that bell and you are subscribed so you will know when the next video arrives at the station. Because at this rate, it's been, a lot has happened. Thank you for riding this episode of the American Rail Club. See you on board next time. Godspeed.